That's an amazing story, man. Like the reinvention of an old industry is much harder than what I did was going into a relatively new industry. You know what I'm saying? To take something, like I said, has been around for over 100 years and to actually look at it at a completely different angle and create this big company is wow. I'm very impressed right now. Okay, so in 2012, you launched the Valuetainment YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
By this time, was your company booming?
No, we're about to go out of business.
Really?
No. 2012 is when, so you remember what was going on with AIG at the time? Like 2000, I think if you Google most hated company in America, AIG, it was 2010, 2011, America hated AIG. It was so bad that AIG called a guy that was on his deathbed, the greatest insurance CEO ever, Bob Ben Moshe, who was a former CEO of MetLife. He's in Croatia, Dubrovnik, at his vineyard. AIG says, hey, we need your help. We're about to go out of business, and you're the only guy that can help us out. He says, I'll do it for $10 million a year salary plus shares. He says, look, man, we can't pay you $10 million because if we do, the market's going to say, look at this freaking greedy guy. That's the trouble we're getting into. They're not even letting us pay bonuses. He says, listen, you call me. I got 3 years to live. I'm about to die. You either give me this money or you don't. I don't need to leave my Croatia, Dubrovnik place. You figure it out. I'll never forget when this happened because I was at the meeting. So Bob comes. Bob and Moshe. He brings the CFO guy named David Herzog. They pay David $6 million a year. We're at Ritz-Carlton, Chicago. And they go to the government and they get $183 billion. When I say government, that means you and I paid for the TARP program that they brought. And by the way, they were the first company paid back plus $21 billion in interest. But AIG in 2010, 2011, no one was selling their products. So we're at a meeting in Napa Valley. Bob Ben Moshe gets up. He introduces a guy named John Deramo, who was a heavyweight guy, very, very good at the business. And he looks at everybody like this. Bob Ben Moshe is like a gangster type. By the way, he died, so he's no longer with us, but he wrote a very good book. He looks at everybody like this, all the insurance CEOs. He says, listen, guys, don't expect another Napa Valley for a while. We need premium right now. And the company says, moving forward, don't use the name AIG. Use American General. So we couldn't even say AIG at the time because when you said AIG, people didn't want to buy the product. In 2012, 2011, they fly into the office and with their lawyers to drop my contract. When they came in, there was an issue because they were worried because I was Armenian. 2 insurance fraud companies, I think in Van Nuys or Glendale, had done something with those guys and stolen $2 million. They said, we're not going to do this with you. You're also Armenian. We're at Napa Valley at that same trip. This is 6 months after my son is born. So my son is born February 1st of 2012, 6 months, August 2012. So August 2012 is exactly 3 months before the first video I upload on YouTube. You're making me think about this now. So we're at this event. I said, babe, I'm not going to go to this baking stuff you're doing in Napa Valley. She takes my dad. They go there. The other guy is there. And the other guy starts asking my wife, who's white from Texas, Jennifer, what do you think about Armenians? Do you trust them? And she says, you realize my husband is half Armenian, half Assyrian. Yeah, but do you trust, because there's a lot of insurance fraud with Armenians. And they come back. I'm in the room with Tico, Patrick, my oldest son. I hear my dad and my wife whispering to each other. And I'm like, what are these guys whispering about? And all I hear is, don't tell him. If you tell him, he's going to get upset. You can't tell him what he said. And my wife says, if I don't tell him, he's going to be upset. I have to tell him what, because if he finds out. So I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? I said, babe, you can't snap. You can't get upset at this, babe. But, such and such asked me if Armenians, if she trusts them because of insurance fraud. I said, who asked you this? That guy asked you this? Really? Okay, no problem. Next week, they fly out to my office to terminate my contract. He's sitting at the head of the table in Woodland Hills. I was at the building today, right across from P.F. Chang's. I'm on this side. Jennifer's here, Moral's here, Amor's here. These guys are in the room. Them and their lawyers are there. And they go like this. Okay, this is going to be a short meeting. I said, before you say anything, I want to share something with you. What's that? Rumors have it that someone in your company, AIG, is not comfortable with the fact that I'm Armenian because you guys had a couple Armenians do fraud and steal $1 million or a couple $1 million from you. I want you to know I'm not happy with that at all. This is a guy that served in the military in the U.S. Army. This is a guy that's half Armenian, half Assyrian that loves his country. And for you to judge me based on being Armenian instead of doing the business, it's going to be a very big problem for me. So having said that, what were you going to say? Silence for 10, 20 seconds. My wife's like, babe, you should have never said it. Moral over here is like, guys, it's risky. Amor's worried. And by the way, Moral's Armenian, Amor's Armenian. And my wife is, Texan. He looks back at me, he says, I get your drift. You have 1 year to show us what you're going to do. He gets out, they had this paper prepared to a termination letter, they leave. We get to work. Me and this guy end up becoming best friends. At his retirement, after 39 years of being in the insurance industry, he's doing a retirement party on a yacht. 5 people are speaking at his retirement party with his wife, kids, everybody. The guy that speaks at the end is his best friend of 26 years. Second to the last speaker was me. And I got up and I gave the speech. I love this guy. But the point with that conversation was when you're saying 2012, we came back and I said, I'm going to start creating content publicly because I was creating content privately. Mario Aguilar says, Pat, you should create content publicly. I said, I don't think my content's going to work. Let's try it out. We uploaded the first video, 2 minutes with Pat. I'm wearing this ghetto pink, I don't even know what I saw the other. It's embarrassing when you watch these old clips. 2 minutes with Pat with this pink socks and pink doing the impossible shirt. You have to leave it up to embarrass yourself sometimes so you realize how far along you've come. But we said we're going to do 1 clip a week for 2 years. And we did. 2 minutes with Pat for 2 years. I said, if the market's interested, I'll continue. 2 years later, we had 1,000 subscribers or something like that. I said, okay, let's continue.
Which is basically nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. And then we kept going. So.
Okay. And I just want to say, I've never said this before, but since you went into the whole Armenian thing, Armenians actually changed my life. Because in junior high, I had a friend named Mark Avanesian. This was the first rich friend that I had. I was living in the suburbs of San Mateo. He had this really nice house in Hillsborough, which is the upper end area of the Bay Area. And I used to spend the night at his house on weekends. We were very close friends. And this was the first time I got to actually see wealth. He had his own pool in the background. He lived in a really nice neighborhood. And the house I have now is somewhat similar to his house. Now that I think about it, it had such an impact on me. His dad was an architect that designed car dealerships, and he did well for himself. But it was like, you have to actually see it. You have to feel it. You have to experience it
totally agree.
For it to really influence you. Watching it on TV, seeing an Instagram videos.
How old were you?
Oh my God, this was 7th grade. So
13, 14?
13, 14 years old. Yeah, I was a kid. And it was so important to actually experience that and see how rich people actually lived. And he had this great family, and it was like everyone was happy all the time. And it had such a profound effect on me that to this day, I still think about it. And just the other day, I actually looked up his house and got to actually, he doesn't live there anymore. Cool. But yeah, no, I actually, I think about a week ago, I actually found his old address and it was like, oh my God, I used to spend the night here, on weekends.
It's crazy. I just told a similar story like the one you said at 14 years old for me. Mm-hmm. Very similar story.